Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Hello and welcome in to another edition of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Kevin Mahalik, and this is episode number 190 of the Baseball Podcast. And we got a great show lined up for you here today. If this is your first time listening, welcome in. We like to have a lot of fun on this podcast, talking all things professional baseball, international baseball, Major League Baseball, all of the above, keeping you updated on everything you need to know in regards to baseball and their efforts to return from the pandemic as soon as possible. If you're a regular listener of ours, welcome back. Once again, it is Thursday, May 21st, creeping up on Memorial Day weekend out there for everybody, and depending on where you are across America and even internationally, that can mean a little bit more to you than others here. I know in the Northeast, in the greater Philadelphia area, there's talk that the Jersey Shore will be opening up for the Memorial holiday. Social distancing will still be taking place on the beach and boardwalk and all of the above, but at least we'll be able to get outside and enjoy the weather, enjoy the summer, and try to regain a little bit of normalcy back in what we can for at least a little bit of our lives out there. But welcome in, everybody. First time, or if this is your 190th time listening to the podcast, I appreciate you guys listening out there. Let's start out by giving a shout out to all the healthcare workers continuing to plug along out there on the front lines, all the workers working in grocery stores, gas stations, all the essential businesses out there, continuing to have our nation running as best we can in times like these. And as more and more small businesses continue to open up, go out, support your local businesses, small businesses, restaurants trying to get back on their feet. Everybody do their part to try to help out everybody else as much as you can, because we're all going through something, whether it's financially or with our jobs or whatever it may be. Everybody's dealing with something right now. So be kind to your neighbor and be kind to everybody out there, and let's all try to get through this together. But jumping into episode 190 here of the Baseball Podcast, keeping you guys up to date on what's going on between the owners and the players in regards to their agreements and everything they're talking about moving forward. Well, it was released or reported by Joel Sherman of the New York Post that on Monday evening there was a conference call that took place between the MLBPA and over 130 of the top players across the league. All 30 teams were represented on this call, and apparently the call lasted for a little bit over 3 hours. So a pretty long, detailed phone call going over essentially what was, I believe, an 82-page memo sent to all the players to discuss the proposal and the return to play action. Well, there was a lot of back and forth on this call. Obviously, a lot of players raising their concerns, had a lot of questions, going over a lot of the details, ins and outs, things like that. One gentleman who was on the call is a union rep. The San Diego Padres catcher, Austin Hedges, came out and gave an interview afterwards discussing a little bit more what they spoke about in detail. And he came out with a few different quotes that should be a positive for everyone listening out there who's a baseball fan. Austin Hedges stated that he is very confident that they're going to get baseball in 2020. They are, quote unquote, getting stuff done on these calls. And basically to summarize what he was saying, their goal as players is to make sure that the future is bright, understanding that 2020 is going to be a loss, whether it's a little loss or a big loss. You just kind of got to put it down for a wash to ensure that moving forward into 2021 and 2022, things remain bright and positive for the players. And this is where, yes, you may have to cave a little bit on what you want for 2020, but the long-term repercussions that Hedges is speaking about here is basically referencing free agency and how teams are doing financially. Because if this season wrecks teams financially to the point where in years moving forward they don't have any financial flexibility to sign free agents, money's not going to be there for the players. If they're saying, well, I want my money now, but then I also want you to pay me my market value in 2 years. Well, that fair market value, if you're a 10, 15-year player, 10 to 15 million a year, maybe you're now a 5 to 10 million a year guy. Instead of getting 12, you're going to get 6, and it's going to cost you 6 on the back end as well as up front right now with what you're dealing with, and ultimately going to, cost you twice throughout your career. So Austin Hedges is trying to come to an agreement in terms that the players can see kind of the big picture and the long-term investment moving forward. Because if they play this year without fans, and we discussed on the last podcast, the last episode, some of the financial repercussions, upwards of almost $700,000 per game specific teams are looking at losing this year. The Yankees and Dodgers and other big city teams were upwards of around $300 million in losses. And that's if they play the games without fans. If they don't play them at all, obviously that expedites and increases dramatically moving forward. So the lose-lose that we've talked about at length here in regards to not having a season due to safety repercussions or precautions or financial repercussions that they can't come to an agreement on, it's just not beneficial for either party, not only in 2020, but continuing to move forward into 2021 and 2022. And this kind of reiterates some other reports that we've seen out there where it basically came out that the owners gave the players 2 options. And the one option is we play without fans, and the players need to take an additional pay cut to subsidize the losses that are coming in from not having fans, or the players need to wait until there's fans with the owners to get their full salary, but that may not be until 2021 or even into late 2021, 2022 potentially. If we're looking at another year from now where a vaccine's available, you're looking at affecting the 2021 season as well. And that's, again, where Austin Hedges and the players need to be aware that if 2020 is a complete wash in just the case of financials for them, if they're able to reimburse themselves down the line, that's where their focus and their strength needs to be put out here over the course of the next couple of days. But for further discussions around what's going on these calls, players want to see some restrictions, some safety restrictions lifted. We discussed in detail what the life of the day in the life of a major league player would be like on the last episode, as well as a lot of the safety instructions that are being implemented, such as no sunflower seeds, no spitting, no using of the training facilities. Well, that's one of the big ones that the players are pushing back on, because if they're getting tested in the morning or taking their temperature, then getting tested in the evening once or twice a week, and everybody tests negative, they think they should be able to use the facilities, the rehab facilities, the training facilities, the hot tub, the cold tub, things along those lines when it comes to trying to get their bodies back to be able to perform at a high level, because they're also not going to be used to the sprint aspect of Major League Baseball and what that looks like for an 82-game season. From July through whatever month, I'm going to go maybe 4 months tops. So you're going to play a lot more games compounded on each other, potentially some double headers if there's weather issues, since we're going to be playing at home stadiums. There's still going to be rainouts and additional travel. There's a lot going on there, and multiple players who have put their name out there basically said, if you want us to perform at peak condition, you need to allow us to use the rehab and training facilities to get our bodies ready to go. And if we all test negative, we don't see the issue in allowing people to utilize those facilities or be in close proximity with each other, close proximity. It's just, it makes sense, but then the pushback from the owner side, the doctor side, the healthcare side is that the worry about false negatives, essentially somebody testing negative for the virus, even though they may still have the virus, even if it's 1% over the course of the 4 months and 10,000 tests per week. If you have 1% false negative, those numbers expedite very quickly. Thus, he could be negative. Well, then he's in there with the treatment facility, and all of a sudden the entire team is exposed. So MLB and the owners are taking every additional precaution that they need to take on top of just kind of being socially distant and being aware with local guidelines, local laws, and continuing to move things forward. So it's a reasonable understanding that, hey, all testing is not 100% accurate. Everything's not going to come back, telling the truth, so to speak. So we need to worry and act as if a false negative is possible at any point. And if that does occur, and that is the case, if we're still taking these precautions such as masks everywhere in the clubhouse, not being able to use the facilities, and not a lot of kind of overlap between players outside of being on the playing field, that's where they feel even if somebody does ultimately test positive, they won't have to shut down the entire league, and they'll be able to kind of maintain the status quo moving forward as they try to get in as many games as possible. But we got a long way to go. We haven't seen a vote yet. We haven't seen a counter proposal. There's just been a lot of talk and discussion around the players, internally discussing ultimately what they agree with, what they don't. The universal designated hitter seems to be passing without much, argument against it from the player side of things. So there is movement. There is continued pace forward. But as we creep to the end of May here, with everybody trying to report on June 10th, coming up on 3 weeks, a lot of this is going to have to be figured out sooner than later. And ultimately, my faith and my guess is that they will get things squared away sooner than later. And then within the next week, we're going to hear ourselves in agreement, and ultimately, guys, starting to try to get back into it. So hopefully we'll have some real baseball, even spring training games to talk about. Anything on the field we can discuss. We're looking forward to it here at the GSMC Baseball Podcast. But that wraps up the first segment here of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. As always, we're going to pause right now for a word from one of our sponsors, one of our sister shows. And when we come back in the second segment, we're going to talk minor league baseball and some of the continued fallout that is rumored to be taking place behind the scenes. So hang around with us. We'll be right back.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco, ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, and thank you for listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Kevin Mahalik. As always, this is episode number 190 of the Baseball Podcast. Thanks for tuning in today. We really appreciate it here. If you haven't done so already, do me a favor. Head to social media, check us out. Check out the GSMC Podcast Network as well. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of the above. The Baseball Podcast has its own page, but within the network as well, anything you're into, whether it's money, news, politics, workouts, movies, music, all of the above, the GSMC Podcast Network has a podcast for you. So if you're into baseball, but you're going, Kev, I'm also into music and movies, I may check those out. Well, hey, there's a podcast for you within the network. So why don't you go ahead and search that and pull it up, and you won't be disappointed. But also, rate and review the podcast. Scroll on down, leave us a review. Those numbers continue to increase for us here within the baseball world, and that is huge for spreading the word and working within Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of the above to try to gain exposure and continue to spread the word of what we're doing here within the GSMC Podcast Network. But we wrapped up our first segment talking about the latest in regards to Major League Baseball and their return to play proposal and what ultimately is going to need to happen, how the players are feeling. But in this segment, I wanted to take some time to discuss minor league baseball. I've brought it up in the past. Quite a few episodes ago, we talked about how there was an initial handshake agreement about how minor league baseball is going to go from 160 teams down to 120. AAA, AA, those seem to be safe across the board. High A ball seems to be safe. And then one rookie level team close to the spring training locations are basically going to be for every 30 teams. There's 4, there's 120. So your middle A ball, your short season, those teams are on the chopping block, and they know it. And it's because of this that it's been reported here recently that there's a bit of a quote-unquote wild, wild west taking place in minor league baseball. And what I mean by the wild, wild west is, well, first of all, we know that in 2020, there's going to be 0 minor league baseball. And a lot of these teams, if they operate with 0 baseball, loss of earnings, loss of revenue, they're going to be running in the red. It's going to be difficult for them to, get through 2020 and be able to finance basically anything that's taking place. Well, this leads in part to the understanding between Major League Baseball right now and the minor league baseball is that MLB will take full control in 2021 regarding minor league baseball and their operations. Because right now, Major League Baseball has their operations team, and then minor league baseball is actually its own affiliate, has its own operating team, own marketing team, own kind of set of standards and regulations that they abide by. Well, now Major League Baseball and that financial beast that is coming along with it, with the major markets and their local revenue and, streams like that, they'll be able to use that to help out these minor league teams. So that's a positive from the minor league team perspective. But it also leads to something that I've been advocating for years and don't fully understand. Well, I think it's an advantage personally for the Philadelphia Phillies that will no longer be taking place after, this agreement and this report that's come out. Well, the AAA team for the Phillies is in Allentown, which is about an hour and a half in traffic from ballpark to ballpark, from the Iron Pigs to the Phillies. And then from Reading to Lehigh Valley, it's about 45 minutes an hour. And from Reading to Philadelphia, where the AA team is, that's about an hour and a half as well. So if you need to call up a prospect from AA or call up a prospect from AAA or even send prospects down thinking about a minor league pitcher who goes up and down 3, 4, 5 times throughout the course of a season, they don't need to relocate. They don't need to have 2 apartment buildings. They don't need to get on an airplane and travel every time that happens. They hop in the car and they drive an hour and a half, or even if they live in Philadelphia, you can get up in the morning and drive the hour and a half to Allentown every day for your commute to work to be an Iron Pig for 2 weeks. Then you're back with the Phillies and your commute is good again. It's the teams like the New York Mets, whose AAA team is in Las Vegas, and yet the big league team is obviously in New York City. Well, if it's in the morning, you call a guy up, you need him in the big leagues, how do you think he's going to perform? Just thinking back to a story of mine, it's not an exact lateral kind of move here, but I had a buddy who's now in the Astros organization. He was with the Twins. He was in AAA. He called me at 12:30 at night, 1 o'clock in the morning one day saying, hey, I just got the call from the big league team. I got to be in Kansas City tomorrow for our day game. Can you take me to the airport in the morning? So I picked him up from Allentown because they were in town to play the Iron Pigs at about 6:30 in the morning, drove an hour and a half down to the Philadelphia airport, got there about 8 o'clock. He had a 9:30 flight from Philly to Kansas City. He lands in Kansas City around 11:30 or so, then goes straight to the ballpark where he arrives in time for a 2 o'clock game, and then ultimately he ends up throwing the 7th inning of the game. He gave up a run or a homer or something, and I said, yeah, the guy woke up in Allentown, Pennsylvania 7 hours ago. Now he's pitching in Kansas City. This is the stuff that people watch the game just casually don't understand. Is this guy got up at 6 in the morning, drove an hour and a half to an airport, waited around an airport, then got on an airplane, drove right to the ballpark, and they ultimately thought he was going to be able to perform that night? It's things like that where, how do you do that as the Mets going from New York City to Vegas all the time? Well, apparently the affiliations, there's going to be a new process, there's going to be a total reevaluation, and some shady business, quote unquote, that's going on. Part of why it's called the Wild Wild West out there is that Major League Baseball has gone to MLB teams and essentially asked for a quote unquote wish list of affiliates. So for the Phillies, I would presume their wish list would be the Iron Pigs and the Reading Phillies because, again, their setup is perfect. It's the way it should be for every ball club. But if you're the Mets, maybe you're saying you want the Iron Pigs because it's the closest AAA team to New York City. Or if you're the Twins, why is your AAA team in Rochester, New York from Minneapolis? There's got to be somebody closer there that can be your AAA team. And then do the level of affiliates change? Well, it's a AA team for the Dodgers, but it's right next to Minneapolis. So why don't we just make it the AA team or the AAA team for the Twins? And that entire restructure and reorganization could take place within the minor leagues. So teams that have been affiliated with ball clubs like the Durham Bulls from Bull Durham, AAA team for the Tampa Bay Rays for years and years and years. Well, they're in the Carolinas. So are they related to D.C.? Are they closest there? Or does it still make sense to have them in Tampa? And obviously, I don't think Major League Baseball is going to go that far and completely uproot the minor league process. But it's just fascinating to see that. I can't imagine the the Las Vegas Area 51s or whatever they are out there are going to stay with the New York Mets and not end up with somebody out on the West Coast and now be an affiliate, which just, again, logistically, travel-wise, now trying to save money, it's going to make sense not to have prospects flying back and forth all the time for safety reasons. It's going to make sense to have them not get on an airplane and fly back and forth all the time. So that's where things are getting a little tricky out there, and there's conversation that's not supposed to be happening yet, apparently happening around, hey, which teams would you want? Who would you want in your organization? How should we restructure? How do we, logistically have this all make sense and move forward? So there is some banter going back and forth between some of these minor league teams and major league teams as well, and this is back to if there's no 2020 season for minor league baseball, well, they're not going to have any money. Well, apparently the conversations that happening is saying, hey, so-and-so XYZ professional team, we'll give you 50% or 49% equity in the company and the stakes moving forward for free. You just need to keep us as an affiliation of you guys so we continue our jobs, we continue to run as a team, a ballpark, a club, continue to help the local economy, and then you make money on the back end as well. Yeah, we still maintain ownership. We run it for the most part day in and day out, but you get 49% of the revenue for 0% buy-in just to keep us afloat as a business. Well, that's not really allowed to be taking place either right now, and there is some communication going around that's saying, hey, maybe the Williamsport Crosscutters for the Phillies are going to the Mets going, you should probably keep us as a single A team or a double A team, and you can make a little bit of money. And obviously, cash is king, and we just talked about how they're looking at cost-cutting measures and travel in regards to AAA. Well, if you can make free money, essentially, by getting buy-in and stake in companies without having to invest, knowing that it could be a long-term ROI, I don't know why you don't look at that if you're a big league team. So the owners in conversation, they'll say that they're doing strategic business moves right now, and other people will say it's a little bit shady and a little bit of bending the rules. But either way, it's safe to say, following 2020, no minor league baseball. 2021 minor league baseball is going to look completely different. There's going to be at least 30 to 40 less teams, potentially new affiliations all over the place. This is going to be a very interesting story to follow as we continue to move forward here, not only this summer, but next summer as well. But that wraps up the second segment here of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I appreciate everybody listening out there. Do me a favor again, rate, review the podcast as we continue to move forward here. But we're going to pause for a word from one of our sponsors, one of our sister shows within the network. When we come back, we no longer have the best of the best segment. We wrapped that one up last episode, crowning the 1976 Reds as the best team in Major League Baseball history. So what we're going to do today is we're going to give you guys an update on what's going on over in the KBO, the Korean Baseball League, when we come back in the third segment. Stick around.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back, and thank you for listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. As always, we're having a lot of fun here on the 190th episode of the Baseball Podcast. If you're new to the show, welcome. Hopefully you enjoyed the first 20 minutes or so. We're having fun bringing you guys the latest update on what's going on here for Major League Baseball. If you're a regular listener and this is episode 190 or 70 or whatever it is for you, welcome back. We appreciate you tuning in twice a week here, listening to myself bringing you guys content about baseball. I appreciate it. So if you could do me a favor, share the podcast with one of your friends out there who's a baseball fanatic. Shoot them a text, hit the 3 little dots up there, click share, send this over, say, hey, this is a fun podcast talking all things baseball. Kev's bringing the quality content. We're talking KBO in this particular segment here, the Korean Professional Baseball League going on overseas. We're now 2 weeks in. I figured it's probably time to give you guys an update on what's going on as we're finally getting closer to Major League Baseball here locally in the States. Let's discuss the only professional baseball that's going on around the world out there. So in this segment, we're going to talk KBO. And the next segment, we're going to talk about the Taiwan Professional League, the CPBL. But let's dive right into it, giving you guys an update on the standings out there. First place team is the NC Dinos. They're 11-2. They had a 6 week left. They're tearing it up right now offensively. They got 18 home runs as a team, leading the KBO. That's impressive in only 13 games. And then their pitching hasn't been too shabby as well. They lead the league with a 3.26 team ERA. So the Dinos, hitting and pitching, look like a complete squad through the first couple of weeks out there. So if you see them on ESPN, check them out. They're the top squad out there. Next up, we got the Doosan Bears at 8-5. Let's see. Doosan leads the league in runs scored and batting average so far throughout the first couple of weeks. Good for Doosan offensively. But they also have some of the worst pitching statistics. So really good offense, really poor pitching. That leads to the 8-5. Let's see. An ERA of 6.24 for the team. So really not able to do anything here on the mound for the Doosan Bears. But if they could ever put it together, find some arms or find some consistency on the bump, they could potentially push their way up these rankings here. Next up, we got the LG Twins at 8-5. LG ran off 6 straight wins. They had a plus 23 run differential there a little bit ago. They lost this past Sunday, but before that had 6 straight. So started off slow, put things together. Now at 8-5, a good squad coming together here. They're an entertaining bunch to watch on television. Next up, the Kiwoom Heroes at 8-6. The Kiwoom Heroes. Let's see. They had a 1-4 week a couple of weeks ago. So they're at 8-6 and a 1-4 stretch, meaning they had a hot start, but they've come back down to earth and crashed a little bit here recently. So continuing along, the Lotte Giants. And I'm sorry if I'm getting some of these name wrongs. I know there are companies here. But Lotte, they started out 5-0 opening week, but followed that up by going 2-4. And 2-6 here most recently, as they're 7-6 now. So starting off 5-0 and then 2-6 in your next 8. Who are the Lotte Giants? Well, the real Lotte Giants, please stand up. We'll have to wait and see if they continue to be streaky throughout the summer here, or if this is just them trying to find their footing here early on. Next up, we got the Kia Tigers at 7-7. They're at improved. They've won 2 straight. Preston Tucker continues to rake. We're going to talk about some individuals and some statistics moving forward here, but the league's leading hitter currently resides for the Kia Tigers and has basically been the offense for the entire team there. So he is carrying them right now to a 500 record, and they've gotten hotter here recently, now at 7-7. We got the KT Wiz up next. They're at 6-7. They've won 2 straight. Don't piss them off here after dropping 3 1-run decisions to the Dinos early on. They came back and crushed Samsung. So KT lost 3 games to the number 1 team Dinos, all by 1 run. If you flip around 2 or 3 of those, they could find themselves up closer to the top of the standings here. So don't write them off just yet. The Hanwha Eagles, let's see where we have them. Their pitching's been very good. An ERA sub-par thus far, but a league low 4 home runs offensively for the Hanwha Eagles. So if you see them on ESPN, you click it on here in the morning, you're going to see some solid pitching, but not a lot of offense from the Hanwha Eagles. We have the Samsung Lions. They're at 5-9. They had a promising start, but it ended up with 3 losses at the end of the week last week by a combined score of 33-12. So got beat up late. The Kia Tigers, the Hanwha Eagles took care of them in a pretty lopsided division. And then in the basement, the SK Wyverns had 2-11. Losers of 9 straight and a minus 37 run differential. Just not a good look for what's going on there in SK, and they're at the bottom of the bunch here moving forward. So looking at some individual statistics out in the KBO, basically who's doing well, who do I need to check out when I'm watching these games in the morning on ESPN, getting ready for work if you're on the East Coast, or if you're on the West Coast, tuning in, getting in from the bar at 2:30 in the morning. You can turn on First Pitch. If not, you're up early, and you can watch the replay on ESPN as well here. But we teased it earlier. Let's see, top batting average in the league right now. Preston Tucker, he's going for the Kia Tigers, Let's see here. He played at 2019 over there as well. Hit .311 last year. This year he's hitting .442. Oh, goodness gracious. With an .865 slugging percentage. He's got 5 home runs and 20 RBIs for the Kia Tigers. And that 20 RBIs actually leads the league as well. That puts him up at the top. Next in line is 15, as we'll bounce around. But Jose Miguel Fernandez, he's hitting .436. Oh goodness, he's having himself a good start too. He's for the Doosan Bears, one of the top teams in the league. 32-year-old Jose is having a good solid start here. Let's see, Mel Rojas Jr. hitting .436, and then you got all the way down to Roberto Ramos and Bae-Jung Dae hitting .395 there, tied at 4th. So 3 gentlemen still hitting over .400 with just about 60 at-bats. So a nice portion of the way in here offensively. Home runs, let's see who's leading him with pop. We got Roberto Ramos leading the way. He's got 6 home runs early on, playing for the LG Twins, hitting .395. He's hot offensively. 6 home runs, but only 11 RBIs, so not a lot of people getting on base early on for Roberto, who was a very good minor league ball player, decided to take his talents to Korea this year, make a little bit more money, see if he can make his way back to the bigs. But Preston Tucker, he's got 5. Kang Baek Ho has 5 home runs as well. He's currently playing for the KT Wiz, so a positive for them, even though they're 6 and 7 early on. And Hang Don Min has 5 home runs as well for the SK Viren. So bottom of the barrel there at 2 and 11, but they got a guy up at the top of the leagues in regards to home runs. Looking at RBIs, Preston Tucker has 20, like we said. Kim Jae-han has 15 in second place. Kan Baek Ho has 14, and then O.J. Il has 14 as well. So your league leader, Preston Tucker, with 20 early on and 6 home runs offensively. Looking at the pitching side of things for the KBO, the best ERA in the bunch. We got at least 13 innings here, so we're looking at starting pitching. But the top ERA, that belongs to Ko Chang Mo. He's at the top of the list. His ERA is currently at .41. He's 2-0 in 3 games started. He's for the NC Dinos. He's been over there playing for NC for a handful of years now. ERA typically floats around 5. So a very surprising start for Ko Chang Mo early on, but he's dealing. Eric Jokic, a left-handed pitcher, .53 ERA. He's 2-0 in 3 starts for the Kiwoom Heroes. Solid on the mound. He pitched for them last year to a 3.13 ERA, so very successful over there in the Korean League. Bae Jae Seong, .89 ERA is what we got. He's coming off a 3.76 year last year. He's 1-0 in 3 starts for the KT Wiz, and then that continues down here. Kim Tae-hoon at 1.38. So a few studs coming on the mound here. Let's look at the most strikeouts. Dan Straley, if you guys know that name. Dan Straley threw for the Baltimore Orioles, I believe it was. But he is currently for the Lotte Giants. He's got 25 strikeouts in 22 innings. He's tied with Ko Chang Mo, who we just referenced, in a .41 ERA. He's got 25 strikeouts as well through 22 innings early on. Drew Gagnon, another former Major League player for the Kia Tigers. He is 1-2 early on, 3.86 ERA, but does have 23 strikeouts in 16 innings, so doing well offensively. So a few names jumping off there, a few household names you guys have heard if you're fans of Major League Baseball. Former Baltimore Orioles touching base over there, and a few minor league performers doing well like Preston Tucker. But that wraps it up for the third segment here of the GSMC Baseball Podcast. Brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network, where we were wrapping up Korean professional baseball. This next segment, we're going to jump over to Taiwan, talk about the CPBL, give you guys an update on what's going on over there, some of the games you've been watching. But this is the only live professional baseball we got going on. So instead of a Major League podcast today, we're sprinkling in the professional podcast with a little bit of international flavor. So hopefully you guys are enjoying the show so far out there today. Stick around. But right now, we're going to pause for a word from one of our sister shows and one of our sponsors. When we come back, we're talking CPBL. Hang around.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Welcome back, and thank you for listening to today's episode of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. It is episode number 190 of the Baseball Podcast. I am your host, Kevin Mahalik, and we are talking international professional baseball. Here in segments 3 and 4 of the podcast, we just got done talking about the Korean Professional Baseball League. Now we're transitioning over to Taiwan to talk about the CBBL, the Professional Baseball League over there that's going on. One of 2 professional leagues currently running across all of the world, with the Japanese league still trying to get things back up and moving, and Major League Baseball yet to get things rotating. Think of it as the MLB is the MLB, Japan is AAA, Korea is AA, and Taiwan is single A when it comes to the rankings of professional baseball leagues and ultimately how they stack competition-wise, compensation-wise, and everything else moving forward. So we just talked about Korea, what we have going on over there in that 8-team league. Well, here in Taiwan, there's only 4 teams to talk about, which makes things a little bit easier for them in regards to safety and protocols and trying to keep the league moving. Major League Baseball having 30 teams, not so much ideal. Even Korea with 8 to 10, they're going, oh man, there's some inconsistency here. We may have an issue. Well, if you triple that, think of triple the risk that potentially Major League Baseball is going to take on here. But let's see. These teams here named after a few different sponsorships. We got the Rakuten Monkeys at 16-6 at the top of the league here. The Rakuten Monkeys, how are they doing it? They're doing it by leading the league in runs. They're averaging 8.73 runs per game. 35 home runs is tied for the league lead as well. 27 stolen bases leads the league as well. Only 64 walks, not a ton there, the least amount in the league. Same with strikeouts, 159, and as a team, hitting 355. Let's dive in and see who's having a good year for them. Chun Shu Chen hitting 341 early on for Rakuten, having himself a nice little start here. Let's go. Let's sort by batting average, then we'll go by games played to see. Ziping Lin hitting 510 in 59 plate appearances, about 50 at-bats. Scroll on down here. We got 73 at-bats for Hung Yu Lin, who's hitting 411 on the year early on, as well as Li Lin hitting 411, leading 11 home runs already for Yu Xiang Zhu, hitting 400 with 11 dingers for the Rakuten Monkeys. A really, really good start for them offensively is really why they're leading the league here. Let's see how they're doing from a pitching perspective. ERA is currently second at 5.45. The best team ERA is 5.35, so clearly an offensive league when it comes to the side that really dominates. And but the pitching staff for Rakuten individually here, they are led in ERA by a gentleman, Yao Ling Wan, in 11 games. He's got a 2.77 ERA coming out of the bullpen. In regards to starters, I Chen Wang, 3.12 ERA. He is 4-0. Coming out of the gate here in 4 starts, so he's had a heck of a start at age 34. And then Ryan Carpenter, age 29, he's had 5 starts and a 3.55 ERA thus far for Rakuten. So a good start for them to the league here. Next up, we got the China Trust Brothers. The China Trust Brothers, they're at 12-13. Only one team over 500, everybody else battling to get over that mark here as quickly as possible. But China Trust offensively, they're doing well. They're hitting 322 as a team, which is second in the league in hitting. 26 home runs, though. That is the least amount, so not a ton of power offensively for the China Trust brothers. 19 steals, that's okay. So averaging 6.72 runs a game. Rakuten up over 8. These next 3 teams in that 6 mark there. So not a ton to discuss when it comes to the offense of China Trust. Let's jump into the pitching side of things, see where they're at. They got the best ERA in the league at 5.35, like we talked about as a team. Let's see here if we can pull up some individuals, some pitching, see how we're doing. Let's go selected by ERA, 39 innings. Okay, 6 games, 6 starts. Ariel Miranda, he's 3-1 with a 2.08 ERA. That's a good start for him. And then we got a 2.08 ERA for Quiz Hee Kai coming out of the bullpen for China Trust. As we continue down for the starting pitching here, as we see, we got En-Shi Huang, 4.50 ERA. He's 2-0 in 4 starts. He's had some nice luck. And then, unfortunately, Jose De Paula is 1-5 in 6 starts with a 5.45 ERA. So a bit of a struggle for Jose out of the jump here for the Taiwanese league. Next up, we got the Fubon Guardians. They are 10-13 out of the jump here. And Fubon, oh man, let's see. They have the least, or the lowest team batting average at 291 when it comes to an offense. They do have 33 home runs offensively, 17 steals. On the pitching side of things, a 6.67 team ERA. 163 strikeouts. That's the least amount in the league there offensively. So Fubon, not a ton going right for them. From an individual perspective, they do have some people standing out here. Chi Heisen Chiang is hitting 353 in 85 at-bats early on in 21 games. And Jiu Ling Cao hitting 352. Both of them have 6 and 5 home runs. Those are the people leading them offensively. And then Yi Quan Lin is hitting 303 with 6 homers and 20 RBIs from the plate side of things. So once again, this league very much driven offensively and what's going on there. Because when you look at the pitching for the Fubon Guardians and you check out the ERA, looking at some of the starters, you got a couple of guys low, but really when you get into it, they don't have a starting pitching until 5.53 when it comes to ERA. Their bullpen is much stronger than the starters, led by Mike Lowry with a 2.57 ERA in 7 innings. But starting pitchers, 5.53, 5.92, 6.83, and 7.71 starting rotation. I have to lead to believe that there are multiple jobs currently open for the Guardians rotation. I don't know how many times we can run out Brian Woodall, who's getting hit around to a 7.71 ERA in 5 starts over the course of 23 innings. So there's got to be something we can look at here in regards to making improvements moving forward. But the last team to discuss here, let's see, we got the Uni President 7-Eleven Lions is what they're coming out to, or the Uni Lions if you're looking at certain websites. The Uni Lions are hitting 293 as a team, averaging 6.73 runs. When it comes to pitching, their ERA 7.71, the lowest in the league, which leads to their 10-16 record and currently being in the basement. Talking about some individual performances for the Uni Lions, let's look at some of their offensive standouts thus far. An-Ki Lin is leading the way, 26 games played, hitting 381 with 7 homers and 29 RBIs. An-Ki really having himself a nice start here. Next up is Ji-Zong Chen hitting 358. He's more of an on-base guy, only 1 home run, but 17 RBIs and 5 steals, so making things happen offensively. And then Fu-Ling Ku hitting 349 with 7 homers and 21 RBIs. Let's see, going down the list, ZG Su, 6-dinger, 17 RBIs, hitting 286. He's having a strong start offensively. And then on the mound, like I said, really struggling there. But they do have one standout, 1.64 ERA, Young Wen Chen in 11 innings. He's got 2 saves, so their closer is performing well, but they just unfortunately haven't been able to get to him with the lead very much because starting pitching-wise, we got a 4.5 ERA for Ryan Fierabend, a 6.23 ERA for Z Quinn Sai in 5 starts, and then we got a 7.2 ERA. And then Don Roach, sorry Don, but 1-4 thus far in 5 starts with an 11.35 ERA. And Don's been in the bigs. He's been to the show. He's thrown in the major leagues with Seattle and things like that. So for Don to go over to Taiwan and throw up an 11 ERA goes to really show you where he is at this current point. But the Rakuten Monkeys are really the team to beat in regards to what it looks like both offensively and pitching. They're standing out right now in regards to who you need to check out and what you need to watch. And these games are available to live stream on Twitter. I talked about the KBO. Their partnership with ESPN has put a game on a day at 5:30 a.m. Eastern time every day except for Monday, I believe it is. They're putting something on. Well, these Taiwanese games, they run about the same time, 5:30, 6:30 in the morning. You can check them out on Twitter, though. They're being presented in English, ultimately giving you guys a look into the sports game over there with no fans and just having some fun. But that wraps it up for the fourth segment here, talking international baseball, keeping you guys up to date. I know a lot of you are saying, Kev, we really don't care, but it's the only professional baseball going on. I like watching baseball, so I've had the KBO on ESPN in the morning. I'll flick to Twitter, watch the CPBL when nothing else is going on, trying to pass the time. So wanted to keep you guys up to date on what's going on over there, who you need to watch, which teams are on, ultimately focusing on which things. But that wraps it up for the fourth segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. When we come back, we're going to talk about the simulations taking place, Baseball Reference, Stratomatic. It's been about a week or so since we touch base and see what's going on there. So I'm going to keep you guys up to date on what the supercomputers ultimately think what would be happening if 2020 went on without this current pandemic. So stick around with us. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. As always, we'll be right back with the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Hello and welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. As always, this is episode number 190 of the Baseball Podcast. I appreciate everybody listening today. If you haven't done so already, head to social media, check us out, GSMC Baseball, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. GSMC Podcast Network has pages across all social media platforms as well. If you're listening on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you're listening, leave us a review, rate the podcast, as well as share us with your friends. Continue to spread the word out there. The numbers have been up since January. I am very thankful for that. Thankful for each and every one of you listening out there. Please continue to help us spread the word so I can continue to do what I love, and that's talk to you guys about baseball. Not only Major League Baseball, but as you've listened here today, you've seen minor league baseball, international baseball, baseball simulations we're about to discuss here moving forward. Anything we can talk baseball, I love conversating with you guys out there. So continue to spread the word, continue to bring the love, and we'll continue to give you guys quality content out there twice a week for the GSMC Baseball Podcast. But let's do it right now. For our fifth segment, we're going to jump into Stratomatic and Baseball Reference simulations. Going back and forth, it's been a couple of weeks since we touched on this. I like to keep you guys up to date about what's going on here on the podcast within the simulated world, seeing where we agree, disagree when it comes to the supercomputers and ultimately what they think is going to happen. So starting out team-wise, going out around the horn here, American League East, Stratomatic, they currently have the New York Yankees. They actually fell into second place here. Tampa Bay took over at 30-21. I misread that very quickly here. Tampa Bay out in front. Boston, Toronto, Baltimore falling behind a little bit, but Tampa getting out ahead of the Yankees. When it comes to Baseball Reference, they got the Yankees out in front by 4 games over the Rays, but very much the Yankees and Rays are 1-2 in the team races when it comes to the American League East. Going over to the American League Central, let's see if we've decided where we stand on these teams. Cleveland Indians, 32-19, according to Stratomatic, being trailed by Minnesota and Kansas City, with the White Sox falling down to 21-28, and Detroit being in the basement there. Well, they can agree with Detroit in the basement, and they can agree with Cleveland on top, and then Minnesota, Chicago, Kansas City. So the White Sox coming back to normal here, 26-23. Baseball Reference had them at the top of this division early on when it came to this simulation here. But right now, Cleveland, Minnesota, Kansas City, Cleveland, Minnesota, Chicago. So the Indians are basically throwing around their weight in the American League Central. Let's see, 4.5 game lead here, 5.5 game lead here. I wasn't as high on the Indians when it came to the preseason predictions and ultimately where I have them finishing. So that pitching staff and that lineup continuing to do damage and make Cleveland a team to worry about when it comes to the American League. Going to the West, starting with Baseball Reference, the Seattle Mariners, 30-21, have to be the surprise of the summer, of the year, of everything in regards to Baseball Reference and what's going on, because Stratomatic has them at 15-36, which is where I think they should be, which is 15 games different than Baseball Reference. But right behind them, they got the Athletics, the Astros, and the Angels all trailing, so I do assume Baseball Reference will have the Mariners falling back by the end of it. But the Texas Rangers down in the basement at 12-37, clearly the worst team in Major League Baseball by 5 or 6 games. So let's see, Stratomatic, they have Houston and Oakland at the top. Texas not as bad, but Seattle very much bad. So Houston and Oakland are the top 2, and these are the top 2 except for Seattle, who's the surprise. So the National League East, Stratomatic, they have Washington and Atlanta, followed by Philadelphia, who's a game over 500, 6.5 back, but the Nationals and Braves are the top 2 squads. Well, that's the same for Baseball Reference. They got the Braves at the top, so flip-flopping them over the Nationals, which I agree as well at 33-17. They have them clearly as the front runner in the National League East. Going to the NL Central, Stratomatic, St. Louis, Chicago, Cincinnati, very much, very close, all within 2 games. Throw in Milwaukee there as well. Pittsburgh, really the only one at the bottom of the barrel. Well, go to Baseball Reference. They got St. Louis, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh in the middle. So both Central divisions kind of up for grabs. We really know what we're getting in the East and the West, but NL and AL Central, those can be argued even by the smartest of computers, is what this is telling me. The LA Dodgers followed by the Padres out west in Arizona. Let's see, Baseball Reference has the Dodgers in Arizona, but they have the Colorado Rockies mixed in there. So Baseball Reference much higher on the Colorado Rockies than Stratomatic. So when it comes to playoffs, let's see, Baseball Reference would have the Yankees, Indians, Mariners, and then the wild card teams would be actually Oakland and Houston making their way. So the Mariners are the surprise there. If we look at Stratomatic in the East, they would have Tampa Bay, Cleveland, and Houston, followed up by Oakland would make the playoffs, and then as of now, the New York Yankees. So a few different postseason teams here as of May 20th in regards to these 2 computers in the AL. In the NL, you'd have the Braves, Cardinals, Dodgers, and then the Rockies and Nationals making the postseason for Baseball Reference. When it comes to Stratomatic, the Nationals, Braves, they would indeed make it. St. Louis would make it, and so would the Dodgers. So very common playoff teams when it comes to the National League in both of these teams. But looking at some individuals, how they're performing here, let's see if anybody else is really standing out thus far. Let's go. The highest batting average right now in Stratomatic all the way down to 359. We used to keep track of who was hitting over 400, how long they would make it. They made it for about 3 weeks or so. Then it started flirting with 380. Well, now we're down to 359. And it is Akiyama for Cincinnati and Reyes for Minnesota. And then Reyes for the let's see here, Cleveland Indians, he's hitting 357, so nobody's hitting higher than 359. When it comes to doubles, Carlos Santana leading the league with 18 home runs. Soler for Kansas City with 20. Trevor Story with 20. Nelson Cruz then with 17, 16. Bryce Harper still there with 15. He has 39 RBIs. Soler leading the league at 55. Nelson Cruz at 47. So Nelson Cruz continuing to mash baseballs even at his old age with 17 homers and 47 RBIs according to Stratomatic. Let's go over here to Baseball Reference. See how we're doing offensively. When it comes to WAR, Baseball Reference, much easier to track this, but Francisco Lindor leading the league at 3.7, possibly up for MVP, followed by Juan Soto and Mike Trout right behind them. Juan Soto leading the league in batting average, though, hitting 374. He's trailed by Ozzie Albies, hitting 370, Jose Altuve, and Michael Brantley for Houston. They're in third and fourth place, respectively, at 368 and 358. So a good year for Juan Soto as he continues to settle in as a replacement for Bryce Harper in Washington. They're not missing that for the amount that Bryce got paid and what they're missing here. When we're looking at home runs, Pete Alonso, he's already got 20. That was tops in Stratomatic, so the top number of home runs, both see them at about 20 as we head to the 20th of May here. Nolan Arenado was 17. Cody Bellinger was 16. Yordan Alvarez still leads the league with 61 RBIs here for Baseball Reference. Still at a ridiculous number offensively for RBIs. Lindor at 46, Soto at 44, and so on and so forth we go. So wrap it up here. Let's look at some individuals on the pitching staff, see how we're doing. Clayton Kershaw, according to Stratomatic, leading the league in wins with 8 wins here early on. Blake Snell still leads in ERA at a 1.21. He's being trailed by Garrett Cole at 1.55. Clayton Kershaw at 1.61. And then Rick Porcello all the way up at 2.52 now. He's gotten hit around a little bit. Steven Strasburg, his ERA has improved to 2.62. Coming in there. Let's talk about saves. Ian Kennedy's got 16. Kayla for, looks like Pittsburgh has 16. Diaz for the Mets has 15. When it comes to runs, strikeouts, can I find strikeouts when it comes to Stratomatic? It's a little bit difficult to navigate, but we'll find them over here on Baseball Reference, what we're diving in. Let's see, from the pitching side of things, we have Walker Buehler, 1.77 ERA for Baseball Reference. Lucas Giolito, 1.89. Max Scherzer, 2.24. Coming in there, Max Scherzer leading the league in WAR at 2.9 for pitchers. Bieber in Cleveland, Shane Bieber has 8 wins to lead the league with 8 wins according to Baseball Reference. As we scheduled down here, Max Scherzer leads the league in strikeouts with 101. Verlander and Giolito had 98. And then we got Garrett Cole, Buehler, and Bieber coming up behind them. So no Phillies on the list anywhere as a Phillies fan outside of Harper with homers and RBIs, but nobody standing out in a positive way, which leads to the 500 record and missing the playoffs as of now, according to both supercomputers. But how's your squad doing out there? You guys listening, if you're Astros fans, Dodgers fans, are you guys agreeing or disagreeing with? And which computer, ultimately, do you think is more correct? Stratomatic or Baseball Reference? But that'll wrap it up for the 5th segment here. That'll do it for the simulated talk in regards to Major League Baseball. That wraps it up. We're going to talk in our 6th and final segment. What I've been doing here recently has been watching on YouTube old school baseball. Been trying to watch old games, pick things to watch, and I watched all 20 strikeout games in the history of Major League Baseball from completion. And I'm going to discuss each one of those with you. There's been 5 of them. We're going to talk about it. So stick around. You guys are going to want to hear that. I'm Kevin Mahalik. This is the GSMC Baseball Podcast. Hang on. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Hello and welcome in to the sixth and final segment of today's episode of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. It is episode number 190 of the Baseball Podcast. We're continuing to chug along here, coming up on Memorial Day weekend. Hopefully you guys have a little something planned. I know the travel, the huge gatherings with groups, having fun, out drinking, out on the boat, the lake, the ocean. Whatever it is you guys do out there typically for Memorial Day, I know it's most likely not 100% the same, but try to have a little bit of fun out there. Try to enjoy some social distancing when it comes to gathering. Maybe get together with your friends, but stand on opposite sides of the deck. Somebody out in the yard, somebody on the deck, but still having quality conversation. Trying to keep our mental health up as much as we possibly can here as we continue to flatten the curve. And I think we're upwards of almost day 70 when it comes to the quarantine here. I'd have to check the calendar again. I think that's coming up either this week or next week. That could change or fluctuate depending on what part of the country you're in out there. But here in the greater Philadelphia area, it seems to be creeping up on day 70. But the sixth and final segment here of the Baseball Podcast, we like to have a little bit of fun. I like to think outside of the box, and I thought this was a great time to talk to you guys about what I've been doing on YouTube recently, and that's picking things to watch, kind of coming up with a category, games to watch. In this past week, my niche or my kick was 20 strikeout games in Major League Baseball history. Now, there were 5 of them, for better or worse, in recent era. There was one that happened many moons ago where a guy struck out 20 over 16 innings. But I'm talking 9 innings pitched, 20 strikeouts. It's happened 5 times in the history of baseball. And all 5 games are actually available to watch in their entirety on YouTube. And if you're like me, you don't have to watch the whole game because, first off, the first one in 1986, Roger Clemens against the Seattle Mariners. Well, you got to fast through when the Mariners are pitching. All you got to do is watch the Rocket throw. So you watch Roger Clemens go up and do his thing. And I'll give you my take on kind of which one was the most impressive. And my thoughts are, obviously Roger Clemens, the most impressive guy to do it, as he's done it twice and was really the first guy to do it twice and the only guy to do it. He was the first 2 times, starting out in 1986. It was a home game for the Red Sox against the Seattle Mariners, where Roger had come in feeling good about himself. And I wanted to look at some of the opposing teams and the lineups that they went against for Seattle. That day, you had Spike Owen, Phil Bradley, Ken Phelps, Gorman Thomas, Jim Presley, Ivan Calderon, Danny Tartabull, Dave Henderson, Steve Yeager offensively. But the Rocket had it going on, man, and it was fun to watch. He gave up 3 hits, 1 run. That 1 run was a solo home run. One guy ran into it. Let's see who it was for Seattle, if I could pull it up here. It was Gorman Thomas, designated hitter, ran into one and popped one out. But 0 walks, 20 strikeouts. He faced 30 batters. It looks like potentially 97 pitches. I don't think they calculated this back in 1986 because there's more detail on it when it comes to Baseball Reference and the box scores. Looking into it here, but watching against Seattle, Roger, he had splitter, slider, fastball were the main culprits. He was getting a little bit off the corner back in 1986, and he took full advantage of it, and basically just overpowered Seattle that day. And it was interesting because it was really just, you watch it and you go, 20? Okay, that's it. Yeah, but it wasn't like a video game style of performance, which we really saw later on, and we'll get to that one. But Roger actually did it twice. It was so nice, he decided to do it twice, but he did it in 1986. And then he waited 10 years, and he did it once again in 1996 for the Boston Red Sox. This time, it was much later in the year. They were facing the Detroit Tigers, who were very, very bad in 1986. I think they were like 50 and 100 at the time when this game happened. You could see that by their lineup here. Bobby Higginson, Alan Trammell, Ruben Sierra, Tony Clark, Travis Fryman, Mellon Neves, Phil Nevin at third base, Brad Ausmus catching behind the dish. But let's see here. Roger, in this game, he gave up 5 hits and no runs. So scattered a few more hits offensively, but was able to keep him off the board. Once again, 0 walks and 20 strikeouts. Now, that's 2 different games with no walks and 20 strikeouts. He threw 151 pitches in this one. Once again, that was not available in 86, but 151 pitches, 101 for strikes. when it came to here. 8 ground balls, 4 fly balls, it looks like. Just, God, I don't even know if that's right. I'm just trying to figure out what the heck these things mean. But just, when it comes to Roger and these two teams, neither offense was very impressive. Looking at the names of the list, obviously 20 strikeouts is 20 strikeouts. It happened 5 times in the history of baseball. But in regards to, just overall competition, he just really took advantage. In his game against Detroit, it was fastballs. It was pound, up in the zone, out in the zone, mix in the slider, throw the splitter occasionally. He really just worked all 4 quadrants of the strike zone, keeping Detroit off balance, and they just didn't have an answer for the Rocket and his fastball. But next up to do it, 1998, Kerry Wood, in what I argue is possibly the greatest game ever pitched. And it wasn't a no-hitter, it wasn't a perfect game, and that was all due to one hit by Ricky Gutierrez. It was a C&I single, third baseman off his glove. Could have been an error, argued by the general public. Kerry Wood has come out and said it was a hit all the way. He's got no ill will towards the scorer or anything like that. But watching this game and Kerry Wood absolutely dice up the Killer Bees, Biggio, Derek Bell, Jeff Bagwell. You also had Moises Alou, Jack Howell, Dave Clark, Ricky Gutierrez, Brad Ausmus. Like, it's just, wow. This, the names that he went through from Biggio, Bell, Bagwell, Alou at the top of the list. He was just playing video game stuff, and he gave up 1 hit. No walks, 20 strikeouts, 122 pitches, very effective, 84 for strikes. And his stuff, just quote-unquote stuff, was the most electric and most impressive out of any of these 4 individuals who struck out 20 guys, or any of the 5 games from the 4 individuals when they struck out 20 guys. I highly recommend you go onto YouTube and you watch the full game replay. There's been documentaries, there's been series, but watch the full game of Kerry Wood against the Astros, and just some of the curveballs he throws and the reactions you have as a baseball fan are just like, oh, disgusting. And it's just, you can't hit it. It's unbelievable. Watch it. To this day, possibly the greatest game ever pitched by Kerry Wood and the Cubs there in 98. Next up in 2001, Randy Johnson did it against the Reds. He did it in 9 innings. But this game was a little unique because it actually went to extra innings. And the Diamondbacks won 4-3 in 11 innings, but Randy Johnson was pulled after 9, so he doesn't get the credit for a complete game, but still struck out 20 in 9 innings, facing the Reds with a lineup of Donnie Sadler, Juan Castro, Barry Larkin, Aaron Boone, Ruben Rivera. He even struck out Deion Sanders over the course of this game. But looking at his pitching line, 9 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, no walks. Once again, nobody's walking anybody. That's 4 now. No walks, 20 strikeouts. It's just, you don't even see that in today's game. With all the strikeouts and everything that's up, having 0 walks and even 10 strikeouts is unfathomable nowadays. But 124 pitches for the big unit in 9 innings. I think he could have went out there for a 10th inning, but obviously they were smart there. He was getting up there in age, didn't want to push it. But his fastball slider combination, absolutely disgusting to lefties and righties. Back foot slider. He struck a guy out. He actually hit him with the pitch, and he swung, I believe it was, in this game. It was just, man, it's intense to watch the big unit out there slinging at lefty. So that was impressive to watch as well. Not quite on the level where Kerry Wood's outing was, but super impressive from Randy Johnson. And then most recently, and the last guy to do it, we had to wait 15 years. So they did it 4 times in 15 years, and then 0 times up until 2016 when Max Scherzer got it done for the Washington Nationals, once again against the Detroit Tigers. They find themselves on the list here for the 2nd time. But Scherzer's line for the day, let's see if he walked anybody. He didn't, so no walks. So if you're going to strike out 20, you can't walk anybody. Those are the rules there. But he gave up 6 hits, 2 earned runs. He gave up a home run and then a few other doubles. So he was hittable, but also was absolutely filthy. In 119 pitches, 96 for strikes. His fastball slider changeup combination was really getting things done, and he was just overpowering guys with heat that day as well, similar to what Roger Clemens did back in the day. So Kerry Wood was throwing gas, but his off-speed pitches were just on the next level compared to even Scherzer and Roger Clemens. But Scherzer facing the likes of Ian Kinsler, J.D. Martinez, Miguel Cabrera, Victor Martinez, Justin Upton, James McCann. Very much more impressive than what Roger did as well back in the day, just in regards to names and the lineup as well. So super impressive, super fun to watch. If you're a baseball fan, like I said, it takes maybe a half hour, 45 minutes, because you only really need to watch the half of the inning where these guys are pitching, so you can kind of fast forward. And the actual YouTube, maybe 2 hours, but you're only watching it for about 45 minutes or so, and it's a ton of fun. So check out all 5 of those games. Pass the time now out there as we continue to trek along here, trying to get to Major League Baseball as soon as possible. But that wraps it up for another edition of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik, and that was episode number 190 of the Baseball Podcast. If you haven't done so already, head to social medias, give us a follow, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, as well as like, rate, subscribe, review, all of the above for the podcast out there. We appreciate everything you guys do to help spread the word and help continue to allow me to do what I love, and that's bring quality baseball content to you guys out there. But that'll do it for this edition. That'll do it for this week here within the GSMC Baseball Podcast. I appreciate each and every one of you listening. Stay safe, stay home, and we'll talk to you guys Memorial Day weekend.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.